From TSSZ News headquarters to around the world at Sonic speed, this is the final. I'm Tristan Oliver. Tonight we're just a day away from the continuance of another community tradition. It's now in its 15th year, and it's the Sonic Hacking Contest, and it has a new roster of playable mods and ROM hacks hitting the internet on Monday. Some entered for glory, others for fun. So what makes this different from Sage, and how do you mod a game anyway? We speak to the contest key organizer on the event's major entrant, the variety of other mods and hacks on display, and where to start if you're just starting to grab interest in it all. Good evening. First to Sonic Forces and the mixed batch of sales data that came from its launch week last week. In the UK, the game did fairly well, actually. The combined sales across PS4, Xbox One, and the Nintendo Switch were enough to grab 5th place in the multi-platform top 40, edging out Super Mario Odyssey, which is a Switch exclusive and has been out now for a few weeks. The data was not as promising in Japan, where Media Create indicated combined sales only rose a hair above 10,000 units for launch week. That's a bit concerning, considering the significant, if not bizarre, partnership Sega forged with restaurant chain Hooters to promote Forces. And we should note that only accounts for the PlayStation 4 and the Switch version, and that's because the Xbox One version did not chart. Now, the estimate also does not include the PC version, but the news there is suddenly concerning. On Thursday, Steam Spy estimated more than 15,000 users had the game, but Friday that number dropped to over 12,400. That's its lowest level since the day after it launched on Steam. In more positive news on the digital end, a Twitter tipster tells us the game is currently the 6th best seller on the Switch eShop. Now, the latest Sonic and Sega fan jam just concluded this evening in Savannah, Georgia. We spoke to its founder, Cory Maru, just about 2 weeks ago now. The event brought together Sonic and Sega fans from the southeastern United States with some big-name guests, including Mike Pollock, Tracy Yardley, Evan Stanley, and much of the Sonic Mania development team. We hear it was a very good time, and congratulations to Cory Maru for, getting that all sorted for now a number of years. And some good news for fans of Sonic Boom. Beginning tomorrow, Sunday, subscribers to the Hulu streaming service will have access to all 52 episodes of Season 2. Hard to believe it's over, right? And here's how we know they will have all of that, because when we broke the story, first on Twitter on Friday afternoon, Hulu backed us up. We'll have a final word about Sonic Boom's second season later in the program. Thanks for the backup, by the way, Hulu. But now to the Sonic Hacking Contest, and before we proceed, we should note that a member of TSSZ's staff, Donnie, is a judge on the panel this year. Now, much like Sage, it is a community tradition celebrating and honoring the technically skilled, but unlike Sage, the contest is judged, and for those who want their work to be anyway, and the real challenge is to take the limits of what already exists within 2D and 3D Sonic and unleash limitless creativity. There's a significant participant this year, too. Shortly after we talked to the contest key organizer and one of its judges, Spanner, about this year's event, it was announced Traveler's Tales founder John Burton would submit a director's cut of Sonic 3D Blast to the contest non-judged expo. We touch on that and other highlights of what's to come this Monday in an interview with Spanner Teacup. Joining us on the final to talk about the Sonic Hacking Contest is its organizer and one of its judges, Spanner. Spanner, welcome to the final.
Hello.
So first, let's talk about what the Sonic hacking contest is all about. I sort of look at it as sort of the sage of ROM hacking and modding, but admittedly, I don't know a whole lot about ROM hacking and modding. So for those who, like myself, who just aren't really aware, tell us what the difference is between making a fan game from scratch and hacking and modding.
Well, the difference between hacking and fan games is, for fan games, you know, you're using stuff that's out there, or you're creating your own engine, or you're using programs like Multimedia Fusion, Game Maker, all that kind of stuff. With ROM hacking, it's actually using the base game. So, like Sonic 1, for example, you know, you're editing Sonic 1, and nowadays, with a few games, you've got the split disassembly, so you've got instant access to the data. It's not where it used to be you could just hex edit and have tools that directly edit the binary file. Nowadays, it's all split. But the thing with the ROM hacks is it's directly editing the ROM. Or in the case of 3D mod, you know, they're just changing models, changing levels if they've figured that out yet. You know, obviously, there's only really a few games that you can get a lot of stuff for the ROM hacks right now, and others, you know, they'll slowly get there. So even if you see some games that haven't really been touched much, you know, there will be a time where people will get to those games when they can, you know, if it's able to be done, like PC games and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, it's a step-by-step thing. You know, it's not exactly an easy thing, especially if you're programming and you've got to know assembly for the 16-bit games. So you've got to know what you're doing, but there are stuff out there, there's guides, utilities, all that kinds of thing. So it's not exactly going in the deep end, but some people prefer the fan game, some people prefer the ROMs. If you're editing a ROM directly, you've got to understand that there's constraints, like for the palettes. Some people might just realise there's not enough, they just can't work with the limitations, so that's why they would go to a fan game instead, where, you know, they would have no limitations basically to be able to do as much as they want. But there is a serious difference. For me, if you talk about fan games, one of the major issues that I've seen with fan games is they're making Sonic games, they're making the levels, and it's like the physics are always off for the most part. But that's something you don't really need to worry about in ROM hacks, because it's directly editing the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's there. I mean, you don't have to worry about that stuff, and you can focus on actually making the game, which is really important. So tell us a little bit about the history of the Sonic hacking contest and some of the new features and improvements that you and others are making to the contest this year.
So the contest was started in 2002 as a fun creativity and create a more competitive atmosphere to further the movement. So the first person who ran it was Ayla, and you know, she did a good job. She ran it for many years, but there was a sense of unreliability at times where, you know, personal issues got in the way or other stuff happened. So I started getting involved around, say, about 2009, 2010, and eventually I took over that contest. And since then, there's been a lot of changes. Like for the last few years, you may have seen we've had this interactive contest week where people are actually able to vote for trophies themselves now. Now, obviously not the whole set, but a small amount. And you've obviously got the streamers that come in, and all those kind of things. And nowadays, you know, we're always changing the contest. So you might have seen this year, you know, there's an emphasis on quality control, because last year there was a lot of people who said that the contest was just terrible last year, which I disagree to a point where it's like there were good entries in that contest. You just focused on all the bad stuff. But you know, some people have their opinions. If you thought, you know, last year, oh, there wasn't anything good at all, well, that's your opinion. But I felt that a lot of people, you know, with last year's stuff, they just didn't really see, like, it's like a needle in a haystack. You had to find the good stuff in between all the rubbish. But nowadays, with this, we took the idea of it because even judging the stuff last year made a lot of people really unhappy, and you might have seen it during the contest, but you just had a lot of people getting annoyed. The judges were annoyed because it was disappointing. But what we've done this year is the quality control is you've got to meet criteria in order for the thing to be submitted. Unfortunately, 99% of people got the hint. There were some that got moved to the expo, but that was usually on request, and there was one that we decided, not this year. But I think the thing with the quality control is, it's early stages, so we will take feedback for this after the contest, and so you might see different things with the quality control happen next year, because we've got to iron it out, and this year it's the first thing we're doing it. So if you see some entries that feel that it shouldn't have been in the contest or it shouldn't be in the expo, look, it is, there's always bound to be teething issues in anything, so you just gotta realize what we're doing here.
And it is, I mean, the judging criteria, even talking to Donnie last night in preparing for this interview, I mean, the criteria is very stringent. I mean, you can't just, you don't accept just any old ROM hack, and I think that's like the big difference here is, you have standards. That's not to say Sage and other places don't have standards. But I mean, you guys know what you're doing, and you've been doing it for quite a while. So let's talk about the entries. By my count, there are 24 this year officially for judging, and a lot of them are hacks of classic Sonic titles still. Now, Sonic's been around for 26 years, it's had 2D titles, it's had 3D titles. Why do you think there remains such a fascination in this community to keep modifying the core Sonic titles, the 2D Sonic titles, as opposed to taking a crack a little more on the 3D side?
This is, like I said, they are happening. If you've probably seen, there are people that have already looked into Sonic Forces and they've seen some kind of similarities with Lost World and all that kind of stuff. And even you've had people trying to break into Sonic Mania and they've managed to do some stuff already, but not everything. With that. But as I said earlier, you've had so many years. You've had like over 20 years, even about maybe less than that. Let's say about 1998 things started, I think, or maybe a little bit before. People have had so much time to go through the 2D titles, figure out what thing does which and how you can change things. The 3D titles is, eventually they will get to a point where you're seeing so many 3D things, but it's early stages. And one of my judges had said to me, because you'll see that there's no Generations mods or even Lost World mods in the contest this year, and I think people were just more interested in seeing how Forces would have been, because I think with Forces, we're all going to wait until someone mods Bubsy in as a playable character. I think people are just waiting for that to happen, and it probably will happen next year. But,
or you could even have a situation where Sonic is modded into Bubsy, but that's a whole other story, probably.
So the formats are always different, and eventually things get changed. I think maybe there's a Sonic Heroes entry. It's more of a mod load or tweak box thing, but I think really it's like, even I had seen some people edit Shadow the Hedgehog, but it's not exactly available on PC. But there's so many like level formats, all that kind of stuff. It's early stages with 3D stuff, but it doesn't mean it's impossible. It's just, if you're making levels, it's obviously going to be more harder than editing a 2D level, for example. And obviously there's so much stuff that's hard coded that you've got to realise. But I think with the issue, I know a lot of people say, well, there's so many Sonic 1 entries, does it get boring? Well, it gets boring if you have to play Green Hill Zone over and over again, but I think nowadays people need to get the hint. And there's some people who think it's just okay to make something that could be made in 2002. But with all the utilities that are, with all the knowledge and intelligence we've got nowadays, we can go beyond a palette edited Green Hill Zone with a few tile changes. There's people making bosses, objects, like new levels and designs overall. people are essentially, you know, they're making their new experience out of old games. Some hacks you'll see, you would not even realise they're based off an old game because they look like there's something new.
And that's, I mean, and that's one of the most incredible things I think about this expo, and you know, all fan expos, you know, of this kind is, you know, you're ultimately you're making something new. You're making a new experience in one way or the other, and that's the really exciting thing, and that's what makes, you know, not just judging this from your perspective, I'm sure, but playing these hacks from and playing these mods from my perspective and others, that's what makes it so interesting. And I have to think that's why this expo has, and this contest has had such standing power in the community. You touched on it earlier about how difficult it is, or maybe not how difficult, but the challenge behind hacking 3D mods, and perhaps that's why we don't see so many of that this year. So, and I don't know how much you can speak to just how much more complex it is to mod or even judge a 3D mod versus a 2D mod. You know, what's the difference from, you know, a development standpoint and even from a judging standpoint, you know, trying to compare and contrast the two?
Well, this year what we have done is, you know, we've had a turnover of judges. Some people, you know, decided, you know, they didn't have the time, or they've done it for so long, they just wanted to do something else. So what we especially looked at is getting judges who had been doing the 3D mods, and we had got Dario and Twilight Zone to do this. Which, you know, you're probably thinking this year there's not many 3D mods, but, you know, it happens. You know, maybe next year will be better. You would probably be better asking one of these people to do it, but I think in terms of the judging a 3D game, you've just got to realise, you know, what has been changed. Like, some of them are, for example, it's more technical. Like, we've got an entry this year where they've replaced the lighting system in SADX with the one from the original Dreamcast Sonic Adventure, which was a lot different. Others, you know, is character mods, or sometimes you get the occasional edited level. It is a different thing. Like I said, with the quality control, it's something that we need to look more in terms of the 3D entries. You know, what can we allow in, what can we not? So it's just kind of like that. But obviously, you got to understand these 3D games are, they're more complex, and you just got to realize you've got to see what they've changed, and they will tell you what's changed. Well, it's just like I said, 3D mods are very, very early stage, but the ones that do get submitted, they're quite okay for the most part. So you just have to see what comes. But certainly this year there's not a lot of 3D stuff. But I think a lot of people were just, you know, breaking into Mania or Forces even. So we get those off years.
It's interesting that you say that 3D modding is still a relatively new thing in this community, especially when you consider that 3D Sonic, it could be argued, has been a thing, you know, for a longer time, you know, in Sega's mind at least, than 2D Sonic has been, you know, depending on who you ask and things like that. You know, it's always interesting that, you know, but given the complexities of 3D versus 2D, you know, that's certainly understandable. So let's talk about the non-judged part of the contest, which I guess isn't really a contest, it's a hack expo. Can you give us a little preview of what to expect there?
Well, at the time of recording this, I've not released the list. It's going to be out soon. It'll be out before the air date. There is one entry in particular that's going to stand out from the rest, and people are probably going to have an idea of what it is. And yes, it is that. There's been, I think you've seen the director's cut of Sonic 3D Blast, and one of the things that, you know, when this got revealed is, you know, I had a talk with the developer of it, and, you know, we just basically say, okay, we've got this unjudged hack expo. If you would be able to submit it, into this would take it, and what's going to happen is there's going to be a beta version of it. That's, if you've seen the trailer, but the whole point of this entry is he needs, in particular, the times from the time challenge. So you're going to be able to post them, and that's going to give an indication for what the final is going to be. But the Hack Expo isn't just about that entry. Mostly, I'm just saying, that's probably going to be the biggest one to come out there. But the Hack Expo has also been an opportunity for some people haven't had the time, if they didn't get their entry in, and that the contest time, they had the time to do it in the Expo, which it is kind of similar. The quality control is a little less, so you might see some entries that you're probably thinking, yeah, I don't know about that. There are some good there are some entries from Sonic Mania. There's one in particular I think people really like. There's 2 Sonic Generations, I think, or 1 Sonic Generation, one's Lost World, and there's a few that they're going to be worth playing. So I want people to go and check them and just have a great time. But like I said, there is a difference. We do not judge them. You just play them.
And if you're hinting at what I think you're hinting with that director's cut of Sonic 3D Blast, that is a very significant and huge addition to this entire experience, judged or not. That's a big deal, and I mean, you guys should be very proud of that. So one big difference between the hacking contest and Sage and other expos of this kind is the opportunity for the judged entries to be honored. And there are a lot of honors here. By my count, at least at this point, there are more trophies to give away and more honors to give than there are entries, which is interesting. So take us through some of the new sort of trophies, the new honors, and for anybody interested in doing this, next year, what are some tips on sort of how to earn, honors in this type of contest?
A lot of the new trophies are newly split, so it's like we used to just have like a best art overall, and that's been broken down into best Mega Drive, 3D, and 8-bit, and that's been obviously done with the level layout as well. There's also a handheld game entry overall trophy, the advanced trophy, since you're getting these really good, 8-bit or even something like those kinds of entries, and they weren't able to get as much recognition as they should have. So the most important thing is we've split them, and also if we've got one trophy that's the most improved entry, it would make sense to have an entry that this year that's felt to have the most potential to be a better entry the year after. And obviously for the community trophies, we've got a few that have been added from the main trophies, and also we've included the best 8-bit and entry that's got the most potential into it. But I think, as the years progress, you'll probably see more of the community trophies come from the main judging. Because I think you used to get like 6 community trophies, and nowadays it's more than that. As for winning trophies, the important thing to know is we don't give every trophy. If there is a we can't really find a trophy to allocate it to, we're not going to give one by default, because I think people realise that it gets kind of unfair that way. You've got to earn it to deserve it. So if we don't allocate trophies, we don't allocate trophies. But a lot of the trophies here is like, when you see these, it should give you an idea, because some people will focus on trying to get some trophies. Some might just do it, they're just taking part for fun. Some will try and submit for the first place prize. Some might just want a participation trophy, which we don't give in this contest. But I think what we're trying to do is, nowadays some people just the whole hack side of things has been in a little decline, or some people just don't pay attention to the hacks as they would have a long time ago. But the thing with the contest is, it gives the opportunity, it gives a week to celebrate this, just like people celebrate fan games during Sage for a week. But yes, they don't have like a best of show thing which is it something they should do? It's been suggested before, I know, but I think for them they'd just rather just have, you know, everyone just takes part, you know, they have a great time. It's not about the best or the worst. But with here, I know, yeah, that's another thing. There is no worst hack trophy this year. There is no big trophy. Now we've tried to get rid of that for a few years, and it's always been the case. So something really bad gets submitted, and we had to award it. I think in the case last year, the one that we awarded it to was just really freaky. It's like, yeah, I don't know why, but nowadays,
Well, I mean,
nowadays it's like we've got all these trophies. We can always add, we can always remove. So next year there may be a different set of trophies. You know, we're always taking advice.
and it's always kind of it's interesting that you mentioned the removal of the worst trophy, because in that kind of a situation, I almost wonder if you have people sort of competing to be the worst, almost like how, you know, the compliment to Sage was Rage, where the deliberate goal was to create the worst fan game, which is, it's an interesting kind of dynamic in that respect. It's a little tongue-in-cheek, but I can see why you would remove that, because, I mean, you want to showcase the best the community has to offer, and there is something to be said for that, I'd say.
Oh, that's definitely happened. There's no denying, you know, if you're going to have a trophy for the worst hack, people are going to submit the worst hack. I think there was one that it looked really bad on paper, but then at the end it surprised you as something that was quite advanced. So sometimes you get bait and switch, sometimes you just get, I really want this trophy. We used to have the shadow trophy for the not safe for work thing, and this thing the last few years it was nearly awarded to a fanfic, or it got awarded. People was like, you know, why do we have these trophies if you're just enabling people to make these? So I think nowadays we're at the point where, you know, what's on the trophy list is what we reward. We're not going to give you something out of fresh air.
Makes sense. Definitely makes sense. So we've obviously had quite a year in the Sega side of things with the success of Sonic Mania. And I was talking to Neohazard, you know, on an earlier program, talking about, you know, sort of the boost that they saw, you know, because of Mania. People really want to get into this stuff now because, you know, they see a professional way forward for the talent that they have. I wonder if you have seen an increased interest in this contest and in fan mods and in ROM hacking in this contest, or just around the community in general, in part thanks to the success of Sonic Mania and the fact that an overwhelming amount of the people who worked on Mania came from this community.
Well, I think it's important to realize, you know, that with Mania, and that this is you know, this is a game that people, you know, there's not been much issues with or criticism. You know, maybe some of the criticism there was, you know, there was so many old levels coming back, not as many new ones, or some people just had gripes about bosses and all that kind of stuff. But the fact is you had people who had been in that kind of, you know, in a fan background too. They used their talents to get onto the professional stage, and they were able to somehow get to work on that game, and that's pretty good. And obviously, you got to remember, Stealth was a hacker who made things such as Knuckles and Sonic 1. He was involved in Mega Mix. He had done other kind of projects as well, and you know, he created his own stuff, and it led to the Sonic CD remake and all those other things that did lead to Mania. You've got to recognise those people for what they've done. I'm sure there's a lot of people who's probably thinking, you know, there could have been other people involved in Mania. Well, that's a subject for another day. But in terms of interest, is Mania making people more interested in the contest? I'm not really sure I can answer that right now. We'll have to see during the contest week for that. But I think with the thing is, especially in terms of Mania, obviously this year we had a rule that, you know, is obviously early stages with the modding, so it's in the expo. Next year we'll probably will accept Mania mods for the contest. It just depends to see how has been done. That's a kind of early stage thing. So, but I think people are, if there's an interest, I'm not sure, but there's a lot of people who, they're fans of particular YouTube people or streamers, and they come to the contest because the streamers are involved in that contest week. So we'll see what happens here.
And you have a lot of streamers, as guests for this contest too. And we should note that we're playing the trailer that Red Hot Sonic created on a loop here as we speak to you. So really quick, in the history, and this is actually my final question to you, in the history of this contest, and maybe even beyond if you want to go there, what's the best mod or the best ROM hack you've seen or you've played or you've judged? What's sort of the gold standard in your mind?
The gold standard is usually will be hacks that win the Hidden Palace trophy. But there are those that haven't submitted in the past. But I think, and this is not knocking off certain things, a lot of people say that Sonic Mega Mix is like the holy grail of hacking. I disagree, because I think people just try and say they're going to make the next Mega Mix. A lot of stuff nowadays has surpassed Mega Mix in terms of some things that are out there. So obviously Mega Mix wanted to be so many things in one thing, but I think there's other kinds of things you've got to realise, and one of the most important things to realise, in terms of winning the contest, you don't need to have a full hack. If you remember a few years ago, you had Sonic 1 The Next Level by Marky Jester. That was a 1 level hack. And there's other stuff as well. You had Sonic Boom a few years ago. What I'm trying to say is, if there's a best hack that I've ever played, it would be hard to give an answer. But I think what people should do is they should have a look on our site or have a look on previous news articles to see who won previous contests. It doesn't matter if they won the contest overall, they won a specific trophy. I would advise people to check for themselves and see how they like it, because there's so much, not everything is the same, and don't try to be the same, try to be more original, because we've seen things over and over again. You've got endless possibilities, and it's to say that you can do a lot of things with hacks, and I think people should keep on doing it.
I want to say that's a very diplomatic answer, but I think it's a very good answer because it encourages, participation in the event. It encourages you to get involved with the community. And
like I said, this year we've had less hacks than last year, but obviously that's because of the quality control. There's plenty of expo entries that the list will be posted before this show comes out. So overall, it will be a good contest, and at the end you'll find the results and we'll have feedback for next year, so you gotta realise that.
And I should note that TSSZ staffer Donnie is a judge as part of the panel for this year's hacking contest, and we will certainly relay the list of the other titles that'll be part of the expo once that is released. The Sonic Hacking Contest begins Monday, and there will be a results show the following Sunday. So, Spanner, we appreciate your time here on the final, and we thank you for joining us.
Oh, we'll see you next year.
Well, hopefully we'll see you this week, too.
Yes, I'm not going anywhere, don't worry. I'm not.
Terrific. And we thank Spanner for spending some time with us on this program. The Sonic Hacking Contest begins Monday. You can go to sonichacking.org to see what's judged, see what's non-judged, play everything for yourself. The full list of the expo titles and the judged titles are on there now. We actually have relayed that on our Twitter feed as well, but we'll get that on the website as well, and we'll of course give you complete coverage of the results and all of the titles that have been part of the contest throughout the course of next week. Now, to the final word, finally tonight. This week we asked you for your thoughts on the second season of Sonic Boom, and Michael Bohenek, well, he had quite a lot of them, and he is our winner this week. Take a look.
finale of Sonic Boom was pretty decent when compared to the Season 1 finale. The jokes and references to video games was kind of funny. One of the things I didn't like about the Season 2 finale was the fact that the pacing seemed a bit off when it went from Eggman wanting to make a video game, which led to Sonic and his friends fighting Metal Sonic and Shadow, which ultimately led to Shadow wanting to destroy the universe for some reason. One of the other things I didn't like was the fact that Amy didn't seem to contribute much to the action in Part 2, which is noticed when she and her friends get knocked out by Metal Sonic. While the rest of her friends were able to recover quickly and take down Metal Sonic together, she recovered until the end of the fight. I also feel that Amy should have a little more fun with her friends, which is like in the beginning of the 3 minutes or less episode. But at the same time, she was pretty much in character in the Season 2 finale, which is okay compared to that one episode where she brought up wanting to break glass ceilings, which contradicts her character, her confident character. I think a good idea for an episode would be like if Sonic got annoyed at Amy being too uptight and decided to teach her to relax. And that's what I think about the Season 2 finale so far.
We could all use some good lessons to relax, I guess. So congrats to you, Michael. Hopefully this will help you relax. You've won a pair of Sonic Mania instruction manuals. You have 24 hours to DM us on Twitter with your mailing address so that we can get that out to you. And that's the final, and now you are finally up to date. We're going to take a break next week for Thanksgiving, but we'll be back in December for our fall finale, the final of 2017. Good night and good luck.